Hello,
my gorgeous.
Hi, Will.
Hi, Laura.
You've got two boys sitting here waiting for you.
Thank you. Sorry, I had a longer phone call than expected from my daughter, who's in America. There.
Ah, wonderful.
Nice.
So this is Will. Will, this is Laura.
I have watched an amazing interview with you with I forgot the name of the guy. Sorry, I'm not very good with names. It was two persons interviewing you. Yes, very nice. I did the exercise of the breathing with you.
Yeah.
Oh, brilliant.
Very interesting. It's amazing how you feel immediately so calm after it.
Yeah.
Like I just heard from Andrew that you, and from you obviously because you replied to me, but Andrew got back to me this morning. So your project has been postponed a little bit.
Yes, I need to see when I'm allowed to do it or when I'm able to do it. I might need to push it off until the end of the year when it gets cold again because it's warming up too fast and it's getting cold.
It's so funny because what you call warm is just like the nightmare freezing for me. It's incredible.
When it was snowing recently, Anna was down in the river.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah.
Lovely. Have you been back in, Andrew?
No, not once.
I'm going to have to come around again, I think.
Yeah, you've got to. So, Lara, is there anything practical you want us to agree or chat about?
I think it's just such a perfect timing that Andrew, you asked Will, and Will agreed to come because it's just perfectly in line with what you have been trying to give this platform, which is ways and method to just count on yourself and nothing else, because everything is so unpredictable at the moment. I think it's going so well with what you've been trying to do all the year. And that's all just really the breathing, the remembering that you have everything you need within you. I love the way Will has spoken to these two people about how the body just can generate all the solutions for itself, for what it needs. And also the fact that your method and your work just align the mind, the breathing, the heart. And this is just exactly what Andrew has been doing with all the people that are joining us for a year. But every time we're talking about a topic and then, making them realize that it's all there for them to use. So that's all really. I mean, it's just amazing. I know it's helping me so much. So hopefully it'll do the same for everyone.
Are you going to focus on those two things, Will? Just the everything within and the connection of the mind and the body? Yeah, fantastic.
So what I've done in typical have a plan and then don't work the plan type mode, I've done a little bit of a storyline because there's so many ways that we could come at this. So I thought it might be, if people are open to it, to have just 2 to 3 minutes of, just a progressive conscious breath work, just to start getting right into it. And then we're talking about something we've experienced rather than something that I'm telling. And it's very simple, simple progressive Ujjayi breath from the yogic tradition. So it really is about, it's about something that happens naturally within us, but that when we consciously and intentfully engage with it, can bring about specific outcomes.
Yeah.
Right? And then it's about how one of the outcomes is a stronger connection, body, mind, heart. Right? And heart, the emotional sort of part of our feeling, thinking existence. Body physiologically, as well as the sensory aspect of body, and how we can start to become more aware of what our body is telling us, and how that can then help us navigate difficult situations. And the build of that awareness and using that awareness in conscious breathing as a gateway to overall well-being. So whether it be, I know you had a previous session on nutrition and good nourishment of the body and mind, and how breathing it could be a go-to to help you access that, or good rest, or just good emotional thought process, etc. So it's a bit of a thread that runs through, and I've got a few points to make along the way, but just a narrative.
So would you excuse me if I go make a quick cup of tea?
Not at all.
I wish you could offer us one.
I will offer you one.
Who knows? Maybe that's next. Well, after doing the exercise myself that you've offered on these two people platform, for a second or two after, I just realized how empowering this is if it becomes, like a proper routine, a daily routine. Because what tends to happen, for example, with me, and I'm not speaking for everyone, but I think most of the people having the same, is we do an exercise during a session that we have with someone, and then we do not apply it necessarily in the everyday life. And then we forget, and then we just remember, and it's so important. I realized today, for some reason, because it's the first time I keep my breath for so long. I've never done it before, and I just suddenly realized if I did that daily, the amount, because I felt so relaxed afterwards, it would be just an incredible thing to remind people that it's not just about knowing it. It's really remembering to practice and practice.
It's about the good practice. It's about that there's an element of ritual that one could adopt in terms of, I start my day by preparing myself for the day as best I can. And when we talk about consciously breathing and paced breathing and different types of breathing practice.
Yes.
We'll get to a little bit of what happens in the brain, in the neuroactivity and neurophysiology, what comes alive and what settles down a little bit. And the more you do it, the more the brain becomes accustomed to that way of being. Mm-hmm. Neuroplasticity, it's a concept of the brain that you may be familiar with. But the more we do it, the more the brain goes, that's where we are. The more the body responds, that's where I am. So that becomes your default place.
That's incredible. And also it remembers suddenly that there is this place where it is so naturally comfortable.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm a bit shy showing my picture because I'm currently drinking a cup of tea and eating a cherry scone.
Well, you look ravishing.
Thank you.
Yeah. You also look like you're sitting on the Amalfi Coast or something.
Oh, I wish I had been. In actual fact, I was sitting in Eastbourne at the restaurant on the seafront there. What is it? The French place.
Oh, I know.
Yes, and we actually, that was a lunch we had on Christmas Eve, and it was just before the lockdown, and we booked the bubble for outside, and our son paid the bill, and it was absolutely wonderful.
Wonderful.
Looks amazing, yeah.
Yeah, it was just gorgeous.
It looks very Riviera, doesn't it?
I mean, some of the other pictures actually facing out the other way towards the headland, it really does look as if we could be in Italy. It's amazing. Yeah. I suppose I could just put my camera on just for a minute. I'll hide my cup of tea. There I am.
There you are.
Hello.
Hello. Hello. Cheers.
Cheers. Cheers. I don't have my tea today.
So it's just us four at the moment, is it?
Yes.
Oh my gosh, that's extraordinary. It's last minute.
They usually rush all together at 6 o'clock.
So you suddenly get very busy, Lara.
Yeah. I found a way now not to have to admit everyone one by one. This Zoom thing is really, it's complicating my life. I'm much better now, but it's been... I
know. I'm having to do everything through Zoom. I mean, yoga classes and everything. Yeah. I resisted it for so long, and then I realised unless I did it online, I wouldn't see anybody.
Yeah, exactly.
It's that or nothing at the moment.
Absolutely. It was the same with Andrew at the beginning, wasn't it, Andrew?
We're
resisting it.
I know. I still resist it. Everybody wants another.
Because I don't know if you told Will, but Will, previously we used to gather here at home in London. And, when the lockdown happened, we were all missing Andrew so much. We kept, asking him to do this on Zoom. But thankfully, he ended up saying, okay, I'll do it.
Well,
I kept saying no, but I just cannot say no to Lara for long. It's impossible.
Thank God.
The thing is, for now,
would be to actually do this one in person.
I have this Lebanese way, Will, of insisting.
Yeah, exactly.
That can actually be quite insistent. I have some Lebanese friends back in South.
Yeah. They can do. The reason why I was lucky, I found this interview of yours because I was trying to find out how to pronounce your name. I didn't want to distort it. So that's how, but now I think I'm saying it right. Will Van Zyl.
We'll say yes.
Very good.
Yeah.
Hi, Alexa. Thank you, Diane. You forgot your grace?
Wasn't Anna, was it? You have a big turnout this evening, Laura.
It's 65 registered, but generally people just sometimes can't join at the last minute, so they register to get the recording.
Oh, brilliant. Yeah.
So that they can listen to it later, which is amazing. But yeah 64 were very interested in hearing you. I was just Alexa, do you know how I could stop this buzzing every time somebody comes in?
Stop sniffing the cocaine. That normally works. Hi, Helen.
Hi, Andrew. How are you?
Very, very well.
It's nice to see you.
As well.
No, hi, Laura.
Hi, my lovely. How are you?
All right. When are we going to have our walk?
We have to very soon.
I know, we live so close to each other. Come on.
Yeah, I know. I mean, it's just been so hard with Alexander at home. I'm finding it, because whenever I have time, he's off his Zoom with his school thing. And
hi, Lucy.
I don't know, he's back to school in March. So the 8th of March, I think it would be easier.
Oh, that's true. Okay, let's do it then. Do you want to say hello?
Hi, Sue.
Helen.
Hi, Laura. Hi, Andrew.
Ah.
Hi, everyone.
She's joined my bubble.
Soon.
Andrew.
Yeah.
I'm going to do it the same as usual. I'll just give it another 2-3 minutes, please.
Sure.
Because is that okay, Will, with you?
Yeah, good idea.
Fine. I'll just
Thank
go
you.
with it.
The most important people are here, but we're waiting for a few others.
Yeah.
Cool.
The really evolved souls are here.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
How are you, Lucy? Good to see you again.
Good to see you. Well, I'm fine. How are you?
Very well.
I didn't know that you two knew each other.
Oh, yeah, we really know each other.
Lucy was an absolute...
He's not quite as handsome as I am, is he, Lucy?
Well, it's a moot point, Andrew. He's put me in an ice bath. That's what, you know.
I know.
He put me in an icy paddling pool.
Wonderful.
Yeah. It was really good, actually. It was great.
Beautifully.
And hopefully you can start up again soon, Ken. I've got so many people that want to do it. I don't know. Have you got a date when you can start doing those again?
I'm busy sort of weeding my way through all the different ins and outs of the latest announcements and plans.
Yeah.
So I'll have a view on the weekend.
I've got at least 6 people that want to come and do it.
Oh, brilliant. Brilliant. We'll be doing some out in nature walking sessions, walk and learn as we go and using the environment. So it'll be really lovely.
Great. Perfect.
Should we go, Laura?
Shall we?
Yeah.
Already? Okay. So hello, everyone. It's very, very nice to see you all. And Will, thank you so much for being with us today. So I'm going to say your name again, just to show you that I can pronounce it. So it's Will Van Zyl. And so very grateful that you have agreed to be here. And you're teaching yoga with the Wim Hof method of breathing as well. And I know I've heard, that you've been through so many health, I think, issues that has helped you go through with your breathing, helped you get, much better and be in control of this pain that you've gone through. And also, your teaching has empowered so many people. And what I heard from some interview you've done, that you join body, mind, heart, and breathing, which is really very empowering. And you also teach people and remind them to be always in the now, which is also work that Andrew has been trying, for the whole year to teach us all on this platform. And I have to say, it has been the most helpful technique and tool that I personally had to go through we all had to go through this year. So thank you. We just would like to hear a bit of your experience, and if you can share with us maybe a little exercise that would teach us how to do this breathing. And I don't know if Andrew, after, because he works with you, Chloe, he has some question, or maybe other people have question, we'll just pass them on to you. Thank you so much. So I'll leave you. with them now. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you, Laura, and really thank you for the invitation to come and share and talk. I do know one or two or three faces, which is just increasingly a reminder of how small the world is getting. But very, very, a very concise introduction. Actually, I have since very young, so my early teens, had quite a significant challenge with my spine, with various challenges, and then in my late teens, I actually quite badly broke my back at the bottom in the lumbar region, and subsequently have had a life of trying to come to grips with the pain and the discomfort and some of the dysfunction that not only affects the body, because we think of the body and the mind as separate, but affects the mind, the emotion, the psychology as well. And a number of practices have helped me. So yes, I teach yoga. I've practiced yoga for a long time, probably the better part of 20 years or so. I have a background in the martial arts, various types of martial arts, which also was an attempt to strengthen the body initially to cope with a spine that didn't quite grow as it should have. But then the main thing that I've discovered, and very recently as well, really experienced the benefits of, is the power of the breath. And it's an interesting thing to say, the power of our breath, because most of us would say that we are breathing now and we just breathe. But there's potentially a subtle difference between us breathing and breathing just happening. Because breathing is, it's actually a very, very good analogy for many aspects of life. It happens. We have the opportunity to engage with it and influence it, but it happens, much like when you open your eyes, seeing happens, or when there's a disturbance in the sound, you can hear, and hearing happens. We don't actually do it most of the time. It happens to us. And that's the opportunity for engagement. I mean, life happens in us, life happens around us. And if we choose to engage with it, we can experience it fundamentally differently. So breath work and conscious breathing is when we choose to engage with it. And the benefits are quite significant. But before I go too far into that, I thought we'd do 2 to 3 minutes of just becoming aware of our breathing and then us starting to consciously breathe. And if everyone's happy and comfortable doing that, this isn't going to be any extreme breathing. This isn't going to be transformational breathing. This is just going to be an exercise in becoming aware of the breath and gradually starting to engage with it and then starting to influence it. So if you're up for that, just give me a little show of hand. Excellent. Lovely. I'll take those who are not on video as a given. If you're sitting on something comfortable, you just sit nice and comfortably. You can be leaning up against something. That's absolutely fine. So long as you have a nice sort of upright body, upright torso. If you are sitting in a chair, just get your feet nice and firm and flat on the ground. And just don't try to influence your breathing. If you're comfortable, just close your eyes or soften your gaze and let your eyes just drop downwards slightly. And just slowly but surely bring your attention, your awareness or your mind to your breath, maybe where it's entering your nose. As you inhale, you might be able to feel a slight coolness at the tip of your nose. As you exhale, maybe that's now warmer. As you inhale, you might feel that air coming a little bit further back into your head, just behind the nose, before it descends into your body. And as you exhale, you feel it coming up, circulating a bit behind the nose, eddying there before it exits the nose. And just keep letting breath happen. Just let it, breathing happen. You're not trying to slow it down. You're not trying to control it. As you're breathing, as it's happening, bring your attention down into your body, down into your abdomen, into your chest. Start to feel how, as you inhale, your body expands. And as you exhale, the body contracts, releasing the air that's in the body. As you inhale, your body expands gently. And as you exhale, your body contracts. As you're breathing in, The body expands. As you're breathing out, the body contracts. And as you're breathing out, just letting go of anywhere where you might be feeling a little bit of tension, a little bit of tightness. You might be holding on in your shoulders. You might be holding on in your face, in your neck. You might be holding on in your lower back. As you inhale, you feel the tension slightly. As you exhale, just consciously release. Keeping breathing. The lips are gently touching. Your jaw is relaxed. If you bring the tip of your tongue to the ridge just behind the teeth in your upper jaw, just let it rest there. And on your next inhalation, inhaling deeply, nice and deeply, allowing the air to rise right from the base of the belly into the chest. Breathing in nice and deeply, and then just relaxing, letting that air come out. And as you're exhaling, gently drawing your navel in, gently to the spine. Inhaling, nice and relaxed, bringing the breath up into the chest. Inhaling fully, exhaling, relaxing. Breathing in, nice and fully, right to the top of the lungs, gently, all the way right to the top of the lungs, really filling your lungs as much as you can, remaining relaxed, and exhaling, relaxing the chest, relaxing the abdomen, allowing the breath to leave your body, and then drawing your navel gently in to the spine. Breathing in fully, and breathing out fully. Breathing in fully, and breathing out fully. And now breathing in fully. And as you breathe out, when you get to the bottom of the breath, fully exhaled, just wait 2 or 3 or 4 seconds for your body to naturally want to breathe in again. Just rest there, bringing your attention inward. Waiting for breathing to happen and inhalation to happen. And then let breathing just happen again. We're not going to be influencing it. We're not going to be shortening it or deepening it. Just let your breathing return to normal, as you would. Right. The very simple reason I wanted to do that, before we got too far into the conversation, was to give a simple sense of how we can move from breathing just happening as we're talking to gradually becoming aware of the breath as it moves in the body. And then you may have noticed some things as you were moving from just having the breath happening to starting to influence it. Your breath possibly naturally slowed down. It maybe got slightly deeper even before I asked, start to breathe a little bit more deeply. Now, what's happening with that is the body, just as our mind, as our attention comes to the breath, we're engaging parts of the brain that through that awareness start to bring about a natural relaxation in the system. The parts of the brain that are normally involved with the cognitive process, thinking about tomorrow and thinking about yesterday, and that's normally potentially worrying about tomorrow and regretting yesterday, start to quieten down simply because we bring our attention to the breath. And the parts of the brain that are more involved in attention, body and self-awareness, emotional awareness, and that sense of response to now. So we're talking about things like the hippocampus, the anterior cingulate cortex, the insula, so parts of the brain that are involved with reflection and one could say being present, become more active. And the amygdala becomes less active. Now, the amygdala is our fear center and part of the limbic system, which is it's like the emotional seat in the brain. So immediately we start focusing on our breath. A lot of the research that has been done shows that the brain adjusts its activity to be now. Now, whether we take a neuroscientific or neuropsychological view of it, or whether we take a spiritual view of it, the breath as a gateway to now, by allowing our minds, our bodies, and if we think of the heart as our emotional center, to come together now, is incredibly powerful. I think just before most of you joined, Laura and Andrew and I were talking about an interview that I did with some people probably about 3-4 weeks ago. And we did an exercise on that interview with just the two of them, where for 3 minutes or thereabouts, we were breathing. And the sense of incredible still and calm that came just from 3 minutes of practice breathing was quite significant. But it is practiced and conscious breathing as opposed breathing just happening. Now, that psychological benefit or that sense of emotional benefit is how we can bring together, and what is beautiful about the title to this forum about mind, body, and heart is how we bring together mind, body, and heart, and how we can align that and use that alignment to navigate fairly tricky situations in life. Much like we've had this past year under COVID, stress it's a natural thing. But if we allow ourselves to run with it too much or be swept away by it too much with the fear and the worry, it can have a significantly negative impact on our bodies in terms of health and well-being overall, and obviously in our minds. And the breath, again, is a very, very powerful gateway to being able to align those three elements of ourselves and be now. So you'll hear Eckhart Tolle talk about being in the now. You'll hear Sadhguru Jaggi Vasudev saying, we are in the now, we just have to realize it. We're always in the now. And being able to manipulate consciously how our brains consider the future and the past and actually come to focus on now is very powerful. And what that gives us, so the breath itself is not only something we need to survive, but it is an incredible regulatory mechanism in the body. So when I talk about the body, I include the brain. The brain is an organ in the body. The concept of mind is something different, and then the concept of higher self, different still. But when I talk about the body, I'm talking about all organs in the body. So we can see as we breathe, when we are in a stressful situation, that stress could be, I stub my toe and my body experiences pain. And in order to numb the pain, a stress response has to be initiated in the body. And in order to close the blood vessels that may be ruptured by the trauma, a stress response needs to be initiated in the body. One of the first things we do when we have physical pain is we don't go, oh, that was painful. No, you go, that was painful. So through the breath, whether consciously or subconsciously, we can regulate the level of stress in our body. And one of the beautiful intricacies of the breath is every time we inhale, especially a sharp, full inhalation, we are triggering what's called a sympathetic stress response in the body. So this induces slight stress into the body for good reason. There's all sorts of good reason behind it. And a long, slow exhalation brings about what's called a parasympathetic response, which is the de-stressing response. Every time we breathe in, we get a slight stress response in the body. Every time we breathe out, we get a slight de-stressing impact on the body. So hence, when we experience stress, someone gives us a fright or we stub our toe, or we're in a stressful emotional or psychological encounter, we generally find we're breathing much more inhalation focused. If you think about times in your life when you've been very emotional and crying to the point of sobbing, it's in and then a lot of inhalation and then. But at first, those exhalations don't come easily, do they? It's this kind of, it's the body's natural way to try to deal with a situation that is stressful, that it can then respond to. And slowly but surely, it's able to release. And if you can focus on the exhalation in those stressful situations, you might as a child or even later have been with someone and they've advised, just take a deep breath and slowly breathe out. It's not the old wives' tale. It's not folklore for anything but very good reason. It initiates relaxation. So The breath can connect mind, body, heart, and it can regulate physiological and psychological stress state. So it's very, very, very powerful. And it is probably the single most accessible, if you want to call it, autonomic influencer. What do I mean? Influencer of our autonomic nervous system. So we have a central nervous system, and one of the elements of that is our autonomic nervous system, which is the bit that just makes everything happen without us having to worry about it. So I said right at the start of this, we don't breathe most of the time, breathing happens. That's autonomic. It doesn't mean it's always automatic. It just means it can happen without us having to worry about it. Blinking is another autonomic response. It happens every few seconds naturally, and it happens without us even thinking about it when there's a perceived threat that we might not even be aware of, that our body picks up and blinks our eyes to stop a speck of dust or something getting into it. Digestion is autonomic. Circulation and the regulation of our blood vessels is autonomic. But we can influence our autonomic function directly using the breath. So Lara introduced me mentioning some pain that I've been through. I talked a little bit about back trouble that I've had for years, and it's done this. So it's spiked with very severe pain. I have arthritis that is now very managed at the top of my spine, some in the middle, and quite a lot at the bottom. And for easily 7-8 years, I was almost a daily user of diclofenac or Nurofen or such to reduce inflammation and remove pain. I don't use it at all anymore because one of the autonomic responses we can influence directly is pain regulation. So we can influence how we experience pain through our breath. And maybe if there's some time toward the end, I'll introduce you to a specific breathwork technique that can do that for you. But what happens briefly is when we breathe a certain way, we do two things. We either introduce or remove stress from our body, or we change the mixture of the main two gases in our body, oxygen and carbon dioxide. And both of these two things are involved or necessary for pain regulation. So the very short story is, by triggering a stress response, a calm physiological eustress or positive stress response in the body, adrenaline goes up and noradrenaline goes up, and it stimulates a part in the brain called the periaqueductal gray. Now, that part of the brain is a great part of the brain. It's like the brain's dealer in our own painkillers. Right? So we can produce an internal equivalent of opium and an internal equivalent of cannabis, which both have analgesic qualities as well as euphoric qualities or feel-good qualities, which are pretty valuable when we're experiencing pain or when we've experienced trauma. And if ever you've been really focused, worked up, excited, maybe running, doing something, some exercise or working manually, physically in the garden and such, and you're using your body. And to use your body, you need to mobilize energy. And the way we do that is a simple stress response in the body. It's natural, it's normal, it's what keeps us going, it's what's helped us survive. But what also happens then is our pain threshold is managed, because when we're exercising like that, we're stimulating the subtle release of these compounds in our system. So you might scratch yourself, and you might recall having done this at some point. You scratch yourself, you're not even aware of the fact that you scratched yourself until maybe 45 minutes or an hour later, you notice there's a bit of blood. Or someone points out, oh, you're bleeding. And you go, I wonder what happened there. And what's happened there, because you're active, your body's moving, you're naturally breathing in a rhythm that elevates the stress levels physiologically somewhat, your body's producing naturally a painkiller that top-down regulates your pain awareness and sensitivity. Quite useful. Likewise, the gas change, it's quite detailed. I'll quickly mention it. Your pain sensors need to be able to bond together in threes, called a trimer, to trigger pain from anywhere in the body. If you reduce the CO2 in your body and enter a more alkaline state in the body, those pain receptors don't bond together as readily. So you don't unnecessarily trigger pain. So chronic pain sufferers like myself with arthritis in my spine and some other little tweaks and such on the nerves, if I feel that arthritic, inflamed stiffness and pain, I spend 20 or 25 minutes doing a specific type of breathing, and immediately it is gone. So very, very powerful influencer of the autonomic nervous system. And in recent times, this last year, the whole concept of the immune system is so topical. Now, nothing is a 100% preventative or cure for anything necessarily. But one of the other aspects of the autonomic nervous system that we can directly influence with our breath is our immune response. It can become much more targeted with much less chronic inflammation through specific breathwork, again, because of that positive stress state that we induce into the body through the breathwork. And the scientific studies that are being done on that at the moment are constantly reinforcing themselves. Over time, it's just getting a stronger and stronger case showing that the degree to which inflammation is reduced through focused, fairly intensive transformative breathwork is quite significant. And the white blood cell count that gets increased by up to 200-300% in some instances in response to infection when this breathwork is practiced is absolutely phenomenal. So there's a lot of ongoing research in that as well. So it's a very powerful tool, not only for being able to impact our psychological well-being in terms of bringing us into the now and bringing about a sense of presence and calm and connectedness and well-being, but the physiological benefits of practiced breathwork, conscious breathwork, and in some instances, some fairly intensive breathwork are significant. And they've been hugely beneficial for me personally. I have had part of what I do is I do leadership coaching as well. And one of my clients wanted to use some of the breathwork technique to focus his mind, gather his mind, and set his mind before he went into stressful situations. So I taught him the Wim Hof method, which includes going into an ice bath. And the day he arrived for that session, he had a very, very bad case of eczema, incredibly bad. He had cracked skin in his wrist folds and his face was inflamed and weepy and such. It normally takes him 2-3 weeks to recover from that. 2 days after we did that training, where I taught him the breath work and immersed him in the cold, his eczema was gone, except for the cracked areas, which were still. And I've had a number of people who've come and had pain when they join the sessions, and then the pain is gone once we've done the breath work in the session. So it's not just the scientific papers that one can read and go, I choose to believe it or not. Experience tells me this is a very, very powerful tool. And history tells us that it's been known for a long time, and science is doing its normal thing and catching up and telling us why, which is beautiful. But the awareness that comes and that state of being that comes with a regular practice of breath work, and any mindful practice, one could say, but the focused conscious breath work that can accelerate us to a place of calm, if regularly practiced, that state of calm becomes our default way of being, because being in a state of calm is in itself a specific type of neural activity. And if there's one thing that neuroscience is teaching us, is that neuroplasticity, or the ability of the brain to remodel itself to do more and more efficiently the thing that you ask of it most. If we're asking of the brain to be calm regularly and consistently, it will start to model itself to want to be calm as the default, which is why the establishment of good practice, regular, consistent practice, whether it be moving meditation, something like Tai Chi, Qigong, yoga, mindful walking, etc., or whether it be seated, static meditation and breath work on a regular basis, is a very, very powerful tool to help establish that sense of ease, that sense of calm, that sense of psychological and emotional well-being from which you can launch into action confidently in any aspect of life. And breath work, I have found, and I think history and tradition will tell us, is at the core of many of those practices. In fact, the word Qigong means breath work. So it is absolutely fundamental to the establishment of a sense of now, a sense of ease, and a sense of calm confidence. And one could almost then say, well, if that's what brings me to now and allows me to be at ease, potentially one could view conscious practice breathwork as a gateway to a broader well-being. Now, well-being it's such an abused or misused word potentially these days. But if you think about it as being well, well-being is about being well. It's not about doing, it's about being well. It's about being well at rest. It's about being well at play. It's about being well at work. But first and foremost, it's about being well here, now, as this. So if there are challenges with diet, if there are challenges with sleep, if there are challenges with runaway thoughts, it's often difficult to establish good practice in those areas because it's so easy to not be calm now and at ease, being driven by something from yesterday or chasing something tomorrow. But if you think of what the breath can give you in how it can rapidly bring you here now, so that the decisions you're making and the actions you're taking are based on who and where you are now, not about what you're worried about tomorrow or what you're concerned about from yesterday, then your decisions about what to eat, if to eat, when to sleep, and how to sleep become conscious, considered decisions based on a knowledge of what you're actually feeling here now in your body, which is the most phenomenal piece of technology we could probably have been gifted with. So as a gateway to overall well-being, as that anchor point or that entry point into, hang on a second, some of these things around me aren't as I would like them to be, centered, and then to access the rest, it's a very powerful option, sometimes without which the others will continue to fail. So from a breathwork perspective, I'm not sure if that is a useful narrative, but that is how I have come to use breath foremost, even before movement. Breath for me is my go-to to center myself, to release pain, to clear the mind, and then decide consciously what to do next. So I'm not sure how you'd like to take it from here.
I just want to add something. After doing this exercise that you were offering on that interview, it's not only the feeling of well-being was what I appreciated after it, but it's also this feeling in control that, anyway, in the last year, you very often feel not in control of very much. We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know how life is going to be after this, etc. And to have this ability to be in control of this feeling, and you said something to deal with the non-wellness rather to deal with illnesses. I think it's a very powerful thing to come back to that place of being in control of your well-being. Yeah. I just have a question before maybe Andrew has many more. I don't know. It's just, do you gradually increase this way of breathing? Because obviously I could not breathe like that for 25 minutes. It's impossible. I did it for three and a half minutes, and it was very hard to control the breathing, this way. And every time the mind goes, as we all know, because we all meditate on this call, you know to breathe, to bring it back, but it's difficult. So do you increase it a few minutes each day, or what is your advice to reach that level of or that time?
So it depends on your exposure, I suppose, and your training and your experience and such. But with a breathwork practice, like anything else, starts by just becoming familiar with something slightly different, and then gradually take a progressive approach to it. So whether it be progressive in different types of breathwork, different types of breathing, or for an extended duration, the idea is to extend the body's limitation without stressing the mind. So if you find that what you are doing is disturbing your sense of calm and ease as you're doing it, then you might be pushing yourself too far. So it's really going by feeling, is this giving what I intend or what I expect or what I need at the time? So feeling your way through it. That said, once you've had guidance, instruction, and practice, what may seem insurmountable or a challenge now becomes fairly achievable. And I see that all the time in the breathwork classes that I offer, whether it be on the riverbank in Henley, or whether it be online, or whether it be the Wim Hof training that I do. Some people will come into the sessions thinking they're capable of so much less, and they're not able to let go into the practice. Sometimes all that's needed is a safe space with some guiding hands to make it familiar once, and then you're able to go further than you thought. So first is feel your way through it, the idea is not to stress yourself by doing it. And the second is seek training. Find somewhere where you can actually be taught and be open to the learning and be open to the letting go, because the breath work itself is, we think it has to be a certain way, but ultimately, once we have the basics, we just need to breathe and do it. And the body takes the rest.
Practice, I guess. Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you.
The interesting thing that you said there about that, the well-being and such, is we have an incredible intelligence in our body. We have life happening in our body. And I steal concepts and such from people when I say this, but we have the power of creation in our body, the power of healing in our body. We can take, as Jagi Vasudev would say, we can take a banana and turn it into a human being. I mean, that is remarkable. But we get our brains in the way of it. And our cognitive function is incredibly powerful. And it's powerful in its imagination capability, and it's powerful in its memory capability. But we generally suffer both of those, which causes stress, top down, imagined stress into the body that gets in the way of that natural, intelligent life process. So the breath, by being able to regulate that out of the way, allows that natural and innate intelligence of the body to do what it knows how to do, which is grow, heal, and be strong. Strong in body, strong in mind, strong in heart, and coming together. So we have it all within us if we just get our cognitive mind a little bit out of the way.
Andrew?
Yeah, thanks, Will. I absolutely love the topic for tonight because it's so simple and so ordinary and so elegant, and yet I often forget my own breath or bring my awareness somewhere else. And I was slightly concerned listening to you talk that if more people listen to what you've got to say, it might make a dent in the profits of the pharmaceutical companies, which would be horrendous, of course. But whilst we've got you with us, I'm sure other people might have questions. And if you do, please type them in for Lara now. I know it's not really a 5-minute subject, but because I know you do a lot of work with cold water and cold water immersion, I wondered if you could just give us a quick overview on the physiological and psychological and spiritual effects of cold water immersion without going into too much detail, because I know that's something that you're passionate about, and my wife happens to be passionate about it. And you once got me into the Thames on a particularly cold day. So it would be interesting if you could just give us the overview.
Right. So my apologies for writing a long note. I did not have time to write a short one. Yes. Let me gather thoughts. And it's interesting. It's interesting because there's a lot of correlation and overlap between what immersion in extreme cold, and extreme is different for different people, right? So if you've grown up in a desert of average 35 to 45 to 50 degrees, 20 is cold, right? But when we talk about extreme cold immersion, I think if we just agree on a simple context here, we're talking about something that by the body at least can be perceived as life-threatening. So when we went in the river, when you and Anna went in the river, Andrew, I was happily standing on the riverbank. I think the water was 5 degrees or so? Thereabout. Right? And on average, when we do the Wim Hof training and we do ice bath immersion, we like to keep the water between 0 and 5 degrees. And when we do the training to become a Wim Hof instructor and the regular immersion with the other part of the rest of the instructor community, we will be out in -9, -10, -20 with wind chill, quite exposed. And there's been quite a lot of interest in this recently, because with winter, as it has, being sort of locked down, and actually quite cold. It was quite a cold winter. There's a lot of wild swimming in winter, and there's a lot of walking and running happening where people are doing it with very little clothing on. So no wetsuits in the water, and for men, just a pair of shorts and a pair of trainers and maybe some gloves and a hoodie and a beanie or such when running, because of at least two of the aspects that you've asked for. So the psychological and the physiological benefits. Now, much like the breath work that I've mentioned, and the more intense breath work that stimulates a positive stress response in the body, going into the extreme cold does that, but it does it much more extremely. I mean, significantly so. It is at that temperature, your body knows that is life-threatening. And the way it knows that is because the primal brain, just around the brain stem and and above that. It's wired to sense its environment. You can think about the three ceptions. Right? You've got neuroception, perception, and interoception. Right? Now, we're talking here largely about neuroception and perception and the sensation. Right? So initially, looking at a cold landscape, part of your body is sensing that it's cold, even if you're not registering it, and it's starting to position you for a survival state. Now, if you put yourself into that water, you are shocking your system with extreme cold, and your body responds by having an extreme stress response, and that part of the brain wakes up extremely and shuts down a lot of the cognitive function, potentially. Right? If you happen to be someone who has an extreme anxiety challenge that you're working with and such, there's the potential for that extreme stress response to translate into an extreme emotive response. And the emotion I'm talking about here is fear. And when fear takes over, that fear-based emotion can trigger a lot of thought that then perpetuates and accentuates the stress response. And it moves from being a positive stress response to a negative stress response. So the cold immersion and cold therapy that we do is always combined with very powerful mindset work, which is based on breath work. So we use the breath to set the mind in a calm state and then enter the cold so that the mind stays calm. You remain aware of the sensation and aware of the emotion, but not entangled in it. And you allow the body to do what it does. And when that happens, the only place you can be in order to truly, in some instances, survive that experience is there and now. You can't be tomorrow. You can't be yesterday. You can't be thinking about the stove you've left on. You can't be worrying about the interview that you're doing next week. You can't be worried about what someone thinks of you because you haven't phoned them for 3 weeks. You can't be. Because if you are, you won't last even the 1.5 to 2 minutes in the water. You physically won't. Because your mind is accentuating a stress scenario. But if you are able to achieve and then maintain that calm, easy mind, you could stay in the ice for 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15, 20, 30, and gradually actually start to influence how your body responds to it. So from a psychological perspective, the ice is a challenge. It is a place where it forces you to be present, calm, and at ease. So from a psychological perspective. And to do that, the breath, when we're in the ice, and Lucy might recall this, it's and then the golden thread. Long parasympathetic induction out. Those of you who had children might remember this as well from labor. Breathe slowly out, relax, calm down. We can't talk to that firsthand. But through the breath again, we regulate the mind to allow us to be in the ice. Now, you asked about the physiological benefits of being in the ice. Now, again, the physiological and the psychological are linked because that stress response the body's experiencing triggers that sense of euphoria, that sense of that buzz that you get, that sense of elation when you come out of the cold water. If you've ever been into extreme cold water, maybe you've gone for a sea swim on a cold day or in winter, you've come out and you felt amazing. Right? And so you can't sit still and you feel so energetic and such. Right? That's the mind is uplifted because of the stress response and how it releases those endorphins. But the other physiological benefits, so we have about 120,000 kilometers of blood vessel and micro blood vessel in our bodies. That's phenomenal as a number, isn't it? It's 120,000, not meters, kilometers. Right? It's to the moon and back a number of times in our body. Arteries, veins, arterioles, venules, capillaries, all sorts of things. Now, we have a heart that works really hard, very, very hard. And for most of us, too hard, in fact, because the responsibility for regulating blood flow and blood pressure in the body isn't just the heart. The muscle in our body, so how much we have and the tone of the muscle, because it applies pressure to the blood vessels, is important. It applies pressure. If you have very little muscle and muscle tone, your blood pressure may vary easily as opposed to being more consistent and regulated. Right. But around these small blood vessels in the periphery, so hands, ears, limbs, feet, etc., we very seldom exercise those, the small ones just in and below the skin, because we keep our bodies at a constant temperature. We like comfort, right? So we never go out into the cold without a coat on or a jumper on or something. And we're never indoors without setting the heating to something comfortable. So those little muscles that are there to regulate the blood flow to the skin and to the extremities never get to work, because one of the things that happens when you go into the cold is called vasoconstriction. Everything closes up. You see your hands go nice and white when it's cold, potentially a bit blue. That's because the blood vessels are being told to close up by your autonomic nervous system so that all of the blood, or at least a large portion of it, gets centered around your core. This is the vital part of your body. You lose an arm, you can still live. It'll be challenging and you'll need to learn. You lose a leg, you can still live. Something happens here, something severe trauma happens here or here, you don't still live generally. Right? So this is the vital bit to protect. And this is where your core temperature needs to stay within a very small tolerance. So to do that, your body shuts down to a degree the blood flow in the extremities. And the way it does that is it activates the little muscles there. So it activates them, and when you warm up again, it opens them up. And when you cool them down again, it activates them. So what you actually get is you get a healthier, extended circulatory system that can regulate your blood flow and blood pressure better. Right? So going into the cold, staying comfortable is nice, but being out in the environment and exposing ourselves to that extension of ourselves, which is nature, makes us strong. It makes us resilient. And strength and resilience are aspects of health and well-being. The ability to navigate challenging scenarios without suffering as a result. The experience is there, but the suffering is not. So that's just a simple physiological benefit. The same stress response. So you get a significant spike in adrenaline, you get a significant spike in noradrenaline, you get that buzz in the head, as I said, in terms of that feeling of well-being. But again, you get an incredible immune boost and anti-inflammatory boost from being in the cold. And for years, in sports recovery and in arthritic treatment, cold therapy has been common practice in many areas.
Well, is there a difference between this therapy of swimming in the ice water and the cryotherapy?
There's an obvious difference. One is fairly dry, the other one's wet. Right? And what that means is that the rate at which your body cools down is different. So if you're in the cryo chamber, you still experience the benefits, but it's a more gradual drop in temperature. Mm-hmm. When you have water around your body, and I'm not talking about just a mist or such, I'm talking about you're in the water or you have just been in a shower and stepped out. The rate at which your body loses temperature, heat, is up to 25% faster than if it's air or just moist air. Mm. So the intent is the same. The experience, I'm not sure if anyone's been in a cryo chamber. You do have to cover up extremities because after a while, the risk of frostbite is fairly real in that kind of situation because it gets down to significantly below zero in the cryo chambers. But the impact on the body is more gradual. So the reduction in your core temperature, or your temperature, not core temperature, is more gradual. It happens, but it's not as extreme. So it's more accessible for most people. Getting into water, for example, in a glacier in Switzerland in a melt pool of -4, -5 degrees is completely inaccessible for most people because it's such an extreme and sudden drop in temperature.
And the benefits on your body are pretty much the same or different, or pretty much the same?
Pretty much the same. I would say from personal experience, I would say the pace and duration of benefit from an ice bath or extreme cold water immersion is greater than from a cryo chamber. I've done both. So the physiological benefits documented in what I've experienced from immersion in cold water and ice can last up to 6-7 days in terms of anti-inflammatory benefits and such. Whereas when I've done it in a cryo chamber, it's been 2-3 days later, I can feel a bit of creakiness setting back in and such. So it's still extended, but I've personally found greater benefit for longer duration from the ice and the water. So.
If it's okay with you, I have one more question from someone because it's a very interesting one. It's why have we become so bad at breathing in the natural, effective way? It's an innate skill we are born with, yet in modern day and age, we need to relearn it. Why?
Why have we strayed so far from nature? Why do we prefer to be caught up on a computer screen? Why do we prefer to eat refined food that gives us a lovely little... We have moved generally away from an awareness of ourselves. There's this concept of disembodiment, right? The awareness of our bodies, of what we have within us, that immense capability we have within us, is incredibly low. Now, I can't answer categorically why. But I could speculate and I could theorize that as we've moved away from being closer to nature, more working and living within natural environments, and as we've become potentially, one could say, broken down community socially, where we don't have the education of elders that take us from one generation to the next, keeping us aware of these innate ancient capabilities and skills, they get lost. Right? These traditions, these rites of passage, these learnings are not passed generation to generation. If you go into certain cultures, they are. But in most cultures, they're not. And we are so distracted by what we perceive gives us that lovely thrill of happiness and achievement and such, that we lose sight of our ability to just be well and happy now through these simple techniques. So I can't say for certain that is why, but it sounds like a fairly plausible story.
Very, very interesting. Thank you so much. It's really fascinating how it's all in here with us, in us, all the answers, the questions, the answers. And, I know, Andrew, you've been saying this for a very long time.
Only because other people told me that.
But it's beautiful to be reminded and to practice and practice. I remember Andrew being very frustrated with me because he would give me meditations and, exercise to do. And a week later, I would come feeling quite down and low. And he would say, how many times did you practice what I gave you? And the answer was, not very high. And that, it's just a learning process. And it would be amazing to try this kind of breathing on a daily basis to see how we feel after that.
It is absolutely amazing. And if I could just maybe make a comment on that, we have it all within us. The intelligence of our bodies, the intelligence of the life within our bodies is phenomenal. We think that there's an outside world that we experience. Absolutely everything we experience is within us. So I may have this delusion that I'm seeing you out there, on this computer screen that is apparently here in front of me. That's fine. I'm sure there's something there emitting light, but I'm seeing you in here. I'm hearing you in here. And if we can get our worry about tomorrow and our concern about yesterday and our beliefs that predispose us to one state of mind versus another, if we can get those out of the way for a moment, if we experience everything in here, we'll experience it more really. And we'll allow the body to do what it needs to do to that reality rather than our imagined reality, which is often not the happiest reality. Yeah. So it is very, very powerful being able to get in here and unlock what is there.
Thank you so much for reminding us of this. Is a very empowering thing, and really appreciate your time. Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you, Will. Thank you, Laura.
Thank you so much.
I find your presence and delivery very calming and very soothing, like a nice deep breath. So thank you. Bless you for coming.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure. I'm so grateful for the invitation. So grateful.
Thank you. See you all very soon. And I hope to see you also very soon, Will, again.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Thank you.
In the cold water.
In the cold water.
With Anna. With Anna and Victoria.
We should take the whole group in November or February to the river.
Yes.
Okay.
Definitely. Thank you all. Thank you.
Bye. Be well.
Bye.
Bye.